Hello and welcome to Star Wars Uplink. I am Rex Overdrive and with me is Adam Cook. How's it going, Adam?
Hello.
We got some great news to talk about. This is our first episode of many to come. We're talking Rogue One. Michael Giacchino is taking over the score for Rogue One, taking over from Alexander Desplat, who was Gareth Edwards' composer on the Godzilla movie that came out a few years ago. But according to, I guess, Disney or other press releases, it's a scheduling conflict. However, a lot of people believe that it's, due to the possibilities of just the reshoots that came about in the early summer, which may have factored into a tonal change for the movie. Not severely. I just think from hearing from other sources is just trying to lighten up the film. Because when it was first announced, it seemed to have somewhat of a, Saving Private Ryan sort of tone. But what do you think about this composer taking over?
Well, I think you got to figure with the Disney takeover of the franchise that there's going to be a lot of control over what the final product is, and if they've released that they've been doing a lot of reshoots on this thing, then that's obviously going to be a question. Is the replacement of the composer a result of them trying to get a different tone intentional, or is that just a product of it? So I think I think I'm just going to kind of sit and wait and see if the end product is pleasing, and if it's good, then I'll support that decision, and if it's I think that'll be in the back of my mind, but I don't think for me I'll be judging it. I think like both of them have pretty good resumes as far as I've seen, and given that Rogue One is kind of in its own experimental realm, I think they have room to mix up the variables a little bit here, and given the fact that it takes place in the middle of the kind of in the middle of the saga timeline. So, I mean, the variables, because the timeline, because the plot is right in there, there's going to be a lot of consistency with the previous films. So that gives you a little bit of wiggle room to maybe play with some of the other variables, like, the potential for it to be a little bit darker, a little bit more of a violent, action-packed film. That's one of them, and maybe the music will be another. So I think they'll make the right decision, but at this point, I think I'd just have to see it to decide if it's a good move or not.
Right. I mean, both of these composers seem to have, they seem to be, on the highest level, or some of the highest level of the composers in the movie industry. However, Michael Giacchino is kind of seeming to be, John Williams' successor. He took over Jurassic World and adapted that score pretty well.
Sure.
And Alexander Desplat, he did the Harry Potter movie,
Potter,
Deathly Hallows. He seems to have more of a darker tone.
Yeah. Argo, if you look at Argo for him, Argo has probably got to be one of the most, it's had one of the most tense, suspenseful moments of any film I've seen, like the climactic kind of ending of that film. Like,
right.
If there's one film to pick out of his that I think would be able to create the emotional response that John Williams has been able to create over the years, I think that's one that sticks out to me, as far as his resume goes. But I think both of them, do very well. And I think it could have been a lot bigger downgrade. So I think if you're going to replace him, they got someone who's worthy.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting seeing a Star Wars movie without John Williams helming the score. So either way, regardless who we have scoring the movie, it's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think John Williams has had, he's the greatest probably. You could argue others, but I think everybody would be pretty much in agreement that it'd be hard to get anyone better, and eventually we knew this was going to happen, and especially given that they've set the stage that there's going to be many more of these films to come. You can't expect him to live forever.
Right?
He's not Yoda, so.
Yeah, he's not 900 years old, but he is like 80, 82 or 83, something like that.
I know.
But yeah. All right, let's move on to our boy, Billy Dee Williams, Mr. Colt 45 himself.
Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, speaking of Lando, Billy Dee Williams made a comment about Lando being left alone. He made these comments saying, "I don't know who Donald Glover is, but as far as I'm concerned, I would say they should leave the character alone. I don't think you can do any more than what I did with that character. I think I made that character into something very special, and I can't imagine anyone else doing it, to be very frank with you." So, with this Han Solo movie coming out in 2018, yes, 2018. It's I don't think Donald Glover's been confirmed to play Lando, but I think he's one of the top. He's kind of in the pole position, I guess, to play Lando. But I mean, if you're making a Han Solo movie, Lando is fair game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, you almost have to.
Yeah, I mean, to have a Han Solo standalone movie and Lando not being in it, I mean, in Empire Strikes Back on Cloud City, Han says, "Yeah, Lando and I, we go way back."
Yep.
And he talks about him being a gambler and things like that. But
if you can make a film about the plot to steal the plans to blow up the Death Star, then you can definitely make a plot to a film that is about Han and Lando's backstory.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I think my opinion on this is that Billy Dee, to say you've done everything that you could do for a character and it should be left alone, like that's what you say about someone else's performance and someone else's character. You don't, I mean, that's such a, don't get me wrong, I love Lando. I love he's one of my favorite characters in Empire and Return of the Jedi. And I think, I wouldn't change his performance. I'm not saying anybody should change that, but I don't think I think that's, on the side of arrogance to say that nobody else can play that role like I did. Like plenty of people have redone roles. Like imagine if Heath Ledger never did the Joker because he said, Jack Nicholson was like, "I already did it all. It's already been done." That's just not the case. And there's great talent out there. Donald Glover, if he ends up being that person, I think that I can see that happening. I can see him being one of those balanced actors that has a good comedic talent, but maybe can bring it with the serious side as well. I think it'd be a good move for him career-wise. I think he could
sure
bring a lot to the table. I think for me, Lando and Billy Dee saying that leave him alone, like I really think that the world is probably more concerned about how the person playing Han Solo is going to do than how the person playing Lando is going to do. So, I don't know. I think they did The Force Awakens. They've brought a lot of characters back. They've brought new characters in. I mean, at this point, roll with it, maybe be a little more involved with the process, enjoy it, try to jump on board and embrace it, because there's going to be a lot more of it, and it's going to be great. So,
right. All right, let's move on. Bob Iger, the big boss at Disney, recently spoke at the Communicopia conference. I have no idea what that really is. That's kind of a weird word. Communicopia.
Communicopia.
I think
it's like community and utopia and cornucopia.
Yeah. It's like a hybrid. But I think it's something of like a Disney investors conference, something like that.
With hippies.
Yeah. But anyways, Bob touched on the future of Star Wars and spoke a little bit about the third standalone movie that's slated for 2020. So, here's the clip.
I had a meeting yesterday with Kathy Kennedy, and we mapped out, we reviewed the Star Wars plans that we have till 2020. We have movies in development for Star Wars till then, and we started talking about what we're going to do in 2021 and beyond. And so she's not just making a Star Wars movie, she's making a Star Wars universe of sorts. And we had a similar meeting with Marvel, a week and a half ago, to plot that out, where we've got movies either in development or production, some nearing completion through the end of this decade, and we too are starting to talk about what do we do the next decade, and so on. So I think it's a very, very different approach. And I will say, since we're on the subject, I did see Rogue One, which is really interesting in terms of the Star Wars storytelling. This is the film we have out this December. It's what we're calling a Star Wars story. So it does not fit neatly into what we call the Skywalker saga. The first 6 were George's. The 7th was the one that we released last December. The 8th is fully shot and being edited. That comes out in December of 17. And then the 9th, we just had a pitch from the director, because he's just going into pre-production, and that comes out in 2019. Then in between, we have Rogue One, which is this December, which is about a band of rebels that are plotting to steal the plans to the Death Star, a story that would have taken place right before George's first movie. And then we have a movie coming out a couple of years that is an origin story about Han Solo and Chewie, and we've already cast a young Han Solo. And then we're already developing another Star Wars story for I want to say 2020, but even I'm starting to lose track. That we know we have not announced what it is, but we've got a writer on it already. But Rogue One, it's an experiment of sorts, because Star Wars has only been told as a saga, and this is a moment in time, and we've loved what we've seen.
All right, well said, Bob. Adam, what do you think about what Bob said at that conference?
Well, I think it's getting me a little bit excited. I think I don't really have anything that I'm too surprised about. I think mostly the news of all this stuff has kind of already trickled out a little bit. But it does have me curious about that third one. You mentioned we have a writer on it, and I think we've heard a lot about Rogue One, and we've heard a little bit about the Han Solo idea, and a little bit of controversy there, or just what ifs going on. And so I'm curious about this third one and what it could be. And it's all hype. It's all, maybe they're planting seeds just to keep everybody curious. And so yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's a nice clip.
Yeah, I mean, when you found out that Disney was buying Star Wars from Lucasfilm, and after seeing The Force Awakens, did you ever think that they were going to stop making these Star Wars movies, or take a several year break from these movies?
I mean, I think my initial thought was, how he had mentioned every previous one has been part of a trilogy or part of the saga, and
the Skywalker saga.
For me, I just expected a continuation. I expected something that was going to be like when we had the video game Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah,
where
great game.
They just pick it up kind of after everything left off, and it's just kind of one at a time. And I never imagined that they would kind of sprinkle in these standalones. And I really like that they're willing to deviate from certain equations. Like, I feel like the original trilogy, they mixed in a little bit. You had different writers, different directors kind of going in collaboration with George. And
Yep.
I think that added to its value. That really brought in different flavors, and I think that's why it stands the test of time as opposed to the the prequels, aside from it being kind of, everybody has their own little complaints about it, whether it be because of certain characters being a little more all ages, a little more child friendly, or having too much CGI, or bad performances by actors, or too political. There's a bunch of different complaints for the prequels, but I think the main variables, the people that were behind the film, the driving forces, I think they're going back to that by saying, this needs to be a collaborative effort. It needs to be the sum of all of these people's minds that appreciate Star Wars, and the people that have grown up with it over the years, and the people that love it. And let's let the people that love it make it, because that's what the fans want. That's the fans are the people that love it, and if we let fans make it, maybe it'll turn out into something that the collective will all appreciate, instead of it being just from the original maker's mind. While George is the creator and he's the one who we all owe for what has come to fruition over the years. Now it's something that everyone can kind of appreciate, and maybe they'll be able to do it a little more justice with these new ones and give us a little more flavor,
Right.
like those old movies, and beyond.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like, seeing where this could possibly go after episode 9. I mean, do they go about trying to, do 10, 11, 12 with Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Adam Driver? Or, I mean,
that depends on the storyline and the script, and does it find resolution at the end of episode 9, or is it open ended?
Right. But I mean, can you? I mean, Marvel's been doing, they've been, having like Robert Downey Jr. As Iron Man for several years now, and I think that's, Bob Iger touched on that in that press conference. How Marvel, structures their movies a little bit, but I think they're going in that way. He said they're going to be creating a Star Wars universe of sorts. So, I mean, are they going to be able to have these actors contracted to 2026, So,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just, can you keep these actors for?
Well, I think one thing you gotta take into account is they have a little insurance that Star Wars is so successful, and
Yeah,
it's tricky, because the success of one film can, it's like a pro athlete or something like that. Like, the success of one can extend the lifespan of the franchise. So, if episode 7 was obviously very successful, and that allows them to make more of them. But with doing all of these, a bad one can deter them from wanting to make more.
absolutely.
Or maybe even making too many can dilute the the appeal. So, if they make a few too many, are people going to be like, oh man, another Star Wars movie? Are you kidding me? Like, I myself can't see myself doing that, but I know that I'm a little bit more hardcore than the average moviegoer that, and a lot of those average moviegoers went and saw episode 7. And, if they want to continue making these and make it worth their while and attract the general crowd, then they got to be really kind of careful about, is the storyline keeping everyone engaged? Are they with each one creating a little bit more suspense for the following film to come out and get them ready to go, get them wanting to see what's next, and that's coming to fill the seats.
That's the thing with episode 8 is Luke Skywalker was in the ending for like 15 seconds and did not say a word.
Yeah, so super ultimate teaser.
Yeah, so pretty much
teaser ever.
Every person that saw that movie last December, you know they're gonna go to the theater this Christmas and try and find out what happened to Luke Skywalker and more of the reasons why he became a hermit and left everything behind.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm not going to have any issue with the trilogy. Like this trilogy, I think like if you have the Skywalker storyline happening, like there's so much history there that I'm already in. I'm already fully invested. But with the standalones, I think those ones for me, these are going to be more original. They're going to be more deviating from the plot. So I think they're both more intriguing, maybe, but they're also more. I'm not exactly sure what to expect as far as the quality. So we'll know more about, how great is this universe that they're creating going to be, and how long is it going to last, and how far are they going to go. We'll probably know more about that and have a better idea after we see how good Rogue One is. And I mean, I'm leaning towards it being great, but it kind of depends.
Right. And I think this April at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, I think they're going to reveal what that third standalone movie is going to be. So, only like, I don't know, what is that, 6 months away or something like that?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yep. But let's move on. A report came out that possibly the final Rogue One trailer is rumored to be attached to the Doctor Strange theatrical release. So the final Rogue One trailer would play before Doctor Strange in theaters, but most likely that trailer will drop online a few days before. Otherwise, I would be sitting in the theater for Doctor Strange.
Regardless.
Well, I would be if they just put it on the big screen and didn't release it online. I would see Doctor Strange, and all I'd be thinking about is Rogue One. But I mean, what do you expect to see in this final Rogue One trailer? Is there anything in like that you want to see a little bit more, or possibly not see?
Well, I think that's a good question, because the last one we got a little bit of Darth Vader. The first one, I think we got a little bit of Darth Vader, but there was questions about like, was that his helmet? Is that it? You could kind of tell it was probably Darth Vader, but we got the official like actual confirmation, obviously, with the last one. And for me, I tend to be on the side of wanting to, I'm already seeing this movie. I don't need more in the trailer.
Right.
I think some people probably need a little bit more to figure out what it is. Like a lot of people might watch it and be like, oh yeah, episode 8, Rogue One.
Yeah, there's still people getting confused. You have a brunette with an English accent. And, is that Rey?
Absolutely.
Is that Rey?
Yeah, and even really, if they give them more, they probably still would probably think it's episode 8. So
Right.
for me, knowing Star Wars, already knowing what Rogue One is going to be, and I know I'm going to see it. I know my expectations are high. I don't need more. I don't need a Batman v Superman trailer that shows me the whole movie. I just want, what I've seen. Maybe take what they've had and add 30 seconds to it that may or may not, show me more or less of what I need to see. But I don't think it's going to affect me very much. I'd probably rather just assume sit in the seat and just watch it as is, because I'm not a big fan of trailers. I like to know what's coming up. I like getting excited about it. I like seeing a little piece. I like teasers, but
Right.
I just know it really is a buzzkill when you sit in a seat and you watch a trailer that's like, well, I don't need to see that because I just saw it.
I think for a marketing standpoint, they need to. I mean, in these trailers, to me personally, I think they've done a crystal clear job of marketing this movie. I mean, they showed the freaking Death Star.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I think if they show Darth Vader, if he says maybe half a line, like if he says something like, if you see him with his fist in the air and say power, I don't know, that might be too much, but I mean, we know he's in the movie. We don't know how much he's in the movie. It could be, I don't know, 10 minutes of screen time,
Right.
I personally would be fine with just a handful of scenes with Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see him, force choke a mofo.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see him light that lightsaber.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want him to be overused or to the point where it's, jeopardizing a shitty portrayal,
Yeah.
especially how, disappointing Darth Vader was in Revenge of the Sith, that was like the lamest.
No.
Right, man. Oh, man. So, I mean, this is the first time we're getting Darth Vader, I think, in a good way since Return of the Jedi. But, yeah, I think just as a marketing standpoint, they need to maybe, I don't know. I think there's a little bit of things that they could throw in this next one to really, get the point across.
Yeah, I mean, I think the titling, like calling it Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So,
yeah.
I mean, I think, it doesn't have an episode number. As you said, it has the Death Star in it. It has Darth Vader in it.
No Han and Luke or Leia.
Right. So, I mean, I think the people that can make that connection, they're probably the people that are already aware of what it is.
Right.
I don't think we really need to be concerned about the people that don't. It's kind of a fan base that is divided. You're either a fan or you're not. And
yeah, well,
the people that are engaged about it and that are aware of it, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna look into it, and they're gonna read, what is it? They're gonna look at it. Information is out there. It's right at your fingertips. They're gonna know what Rogue One is. So marketing, I think they're fine about it. It's gonna say Star Wars on it, so I think people are gonna eat it up.
Right. All right, so I guess that's gonna do it for this podcast.
Yeah.
All right, first one down the pipeline. But before we get going, if you enjoyed this podcast, please go on iTunes or on the podcast iOS app and leave us a review and give us a rating, preferably a 5-star rating. So if you could do that, that would be great. But you guys can follow us on Twitter at Star Wars Uplink. But yeah, go ahead and tell your friends if you guys enjoyed this. Tell your friends about this podcast. Help us spread the word, being that this is our first podcast. That would be very helpful, and we'd greatly appreciate it. Also, we will take fan Twitter questions. Just tweet us at Star Wars Uplink, and we'll talk about those on the show. You can get your Twitter question read on our show by Rex Overdrive and Adam. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. May the Force be with you.